Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I have a very special guest with me here today, Michelle O'Connor, who's the VP of Marketing and Community at Uphold. Many of you may recognize the name Uphold, of course, one of the best exchanges out there. I've interviewed the CEO and a few other folks over the years here on the channel. Michelle, it's great to have you.
Awesome to be here. Thanks.
Michelle, some exciting news that came out recently about Uphold's new debit card has a lot of folks talking about it because it's very different from any other crypto spending card out there. So, can you give us an overview about that debit card and what it entails?
Sure. So it's the first card issued by MasterCard that's connected to any sort of crypto activity. What's really interesting about the card is we as a company took a step back to think about who are we and what do our users love best about the wallet, and it's our spendability, our anything to anything feature. So we wanted a card that supported that and didn't have limitations in place. So essentially what it is our US users will be able to spend any asset they have in their wallet without having to first move to USD. So there's an app that will be rolling out shortly that's separate from our traditional wallet app, where you can easily toggle between which currency you want to spend in real time. It's really easy to navigate. It's super cool to use. If you look at our Twitter feed, our beta users are over the moon, obsessed with it, and just really, there's nothing cooler than going to a store and being like, oh, I have, Brave rewards. I'm going to spend my bat, and boom, you bought your lunch. Problem solved. It's just really cool. I was in a store and the POS system was down, and by the time I left, the store manager had signed up for Uphold, was in the beta, and now is accepting. It's just a really cool way to see that we're really moving the economy forward, but also moving what Uphold can do for it as well.
Yeah, I really love that because part of the growth and adoption of crypto is the ability to not only invest in it and hold it, but also spend it, if you will. And I read that the card is a multi asset. So not only crypto, but gold and also fiat currencies. Fiat currencies. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So a lot of people know that we have gold, but our users can hold gold, palladium, and a few other commodities, as well as any of the 30 plus or minus fiats, depending on where you are. Those are all spendable as well. And an additional step we took in this card is really bridging old new money systems, which is what Uphold does. We remove foreign transaction fees. So you hold the card, you can spend any asset you want anywhere you want at any of the merchants that are under the MasterCard network with no foreign exchange fees. So that really takes it to a global kind of borderless card, sort of how we see ourselves at Uphold. We're borderless. You can be anyone, anywhere, anytime, and spend any of the assets we support.
That's really cool. And I love the no fees for the international transactions. And as far as their specific cryptos, I'm sure there's many. I don't expect you to list all of them out, but how many cryptos, and do you support like the top three, four cryptos as far as being able to spend?
Anything that you as a US user have in your wallet is spendable outside of some of the tier four currencies. That would be, I believe, there's three or four that are just more for speculation now, not spendable.
Sure. So I'm assuming just to, for the viewer's sake, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Litecoin, all of those. Perfect. Perfect. So how does that process take place? I mean, and I think many of us would be curious about that. I have my crypto maybe in my Uphold wallet. It's connected to my debit card. I go and I pay with my debit card. Is the crypto sold at that instant and then converted to cash? How does that whole process work?
You, as a user, it's a seamless process. You don't have to sell or initiate anything. There's an app that you can toggle between any currency you want. So you could go to CVS and say, oh, I want to spend XRP, but then go to Starbucks a minute later and say, oh, I have that, I want to spend that, or I want to spend USD, and easily just tap, tap, and then you're changing in real time your currencies you want to spend. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I want to spend something, I have to go from BAT to USD. to then be able to spend. It's real time. Whatever currency you set you want to spend, that's what you're spending. You get a pop-up notification immediately after. This is what you spent. This is where you spent it. There's a real-time rolling history of transactions that you'll see. It really is a very seamless experience on the user side, as well as if you log into your Uphold account, you have the historical transactions that you do traditionally now.
Very cool. That sounds very easy. So you don't have to worry about it. You just go and spend it as you would using any other card.
Exactly.
And as far as the exchange rate or the price as to which the respective cryptos converted to fiat, I'm assuming it's the current market rate, right?
It's current market rate, and it mirrors to our anything to anything rollout that happened in early January, where the trading commissions, there's 0%. So what you spend is what you get, and you're not getting hit with any of the transaction or trading fees.
Awesome. And you mentioned it's available to U.S. users. Is it in every state for the most part?
It's in every state where we operate. We also have plans to roll out globally. We're not just a U.S. company. So it was U.S. first, but it's not U.S. only. We hope to have an announcement for our European audience somewhat soon. And then from there, we have a rollout plan in place to hit our other major geographies to really bring this product where it's needed, where people don't have as easy access to something like a debit card in general.
Oh, very cool. And a question I want to ask, because it relates to just maybe some lack of clarity in the United States, but in spending, you mentioned you guys keep a record of that. I'm assuming that has to be reported to the IRS and respective tax authorities, depending on where you live.
Yeah, so you may have seen our announcement with TaxBit about 2 weeks now, 3 weeks. It's time flies when you're doing as much as we're doing here. Mm-hmm. So we partnered with TaxBit, who initially partnered with a few years ago to help our users get guidance with tax reporting. Since then, the legislation has changed and the requirements, and we really took a step back again, thinking about how to make it a seamless experience for our users, mainly in the U.S., because that's where tax legislation is the furthest along and the requirements are clearest, and where TaxBit has already hit the ground running and they're moving. So we're rolling out a suite of services that by Q2, knock on wood, should have real-time reporting for what your obligations, your liabilities, and your opportunity for movement to reduce those would be. So in the event, if there is a taxable event within the card, the TaxBit integration will give you real-time equivalent to what that is. And then at the end of the year, if you were to look at and say, hey, what are my liabilities? What's my opportunity? It will give you real-time ability to assess those losses, reduce those losses if possible, or if there's gains as well. So.
Got it. That makes sense. And I've even read about, there are some bills, I think, being pushed by some congressmen and congresswomen about, transactions below $600 being non-taxable. And I'm hoping that, those things go through, but I'm sure that will be beneficial for using the card and, any other company that's looking to do something similar. But it's great to hear that you guys are putting in the respective resources and guardrails and things so folks can easily pull that data and use it for their taxes and all that.
Yeah, anything we do, we always have our users in mind before we even start speccing it to put it on the roadmap or anything. And we want to make sure that, yeah, this is a cool product, but is it going to bridge old and new money? Is it going to bring the ecosystem further? Is it going to solve a problem or make another problem in a different way? So we really always are looking at how and what and will people use it. And I think that's one of the reasons, if you've been in our community forever, like we really listen to what everyone wants and hope what we bring is what solves a problem, but also gives some usability and bridging that gap a little bit more.
Yep, for sure. And I've used Uphold for a while. I think even before some other exchanges had certain cryptos, I've always been happy with the services Uphold has provided. And, I certainly want to look forward to using that debit card. So I want to ask, what's the process to sign up for that?
Sure. So there's a wait list now, and I can send the URL so everyone has it. The way that's working is in order to ensure that it really works exactly how we expect it to, and there isn't like a run on the program, which even with our beta, we had such interest that we had to take a minute to really get everything in place. If you sign up for the wait list, there's a social share and kind of gamification to it, where the more you share, the higher on the list you climb. We have, at last point, I think 6,500 people on the list right now. So it's growing, and we will do a tiered rollout to that. So we're going to do in batches to make sure that everything runs as it should. We don't hit a tech bump as some things happen and have, problems or things crash, because some other platforms recently have had some big crashes and have gone down, and we always try to avoid that. So waitlist is up now. We're going to start rolling that out. Our beta users will be the first to receive their cards, and that should be later this week. And then from there, midweek next week, we should start rolling out to the first people on the wait list. So get on the wait list. In order to get your card, you have to be a U.S. user. So if you're not already, sign up for your Uphold account and get ready.
Awesome. Yeah, and that totally makes sense. I think you got to test everything, make sure it works, functioning before you go fully in production live and for the masses. So that totally makes sense. And everyone, I'll put a link in the description too for that sign up. So definitely check it out. So Michelle, this is really great. Is there anything else, you guys are working on, you want to give us some hints on, maybe coming later this year or so from Uphold? No problem if you can't, but just curious if there's anything else going on.
Yeah, we always have a ton in place. So one thing that I know I can share loosely is a lot of our users want higher limits and faster funding, and those are two things that we're always working on. We launched Plaid, I believe, in January fully, and that gives users, if they haven't already integrated with it, higher limits out the gate. We're going to be launching basically through June, slowly giving users access to higher limits, faster funding, and kind of a suite of services along that line that will really remove some of the hurdles that have been in place to get people using the platform, get them able to access, sign up, and everything faster. And if anyone's used the new UX that we launched in January, it's miles away from what we started, in 2013, 2014 when we launched as Bit Reserve. So we're constantly iterating to improve and evolve. And if anyone has any suggestions, tweet at us, because we're always open to hearing what you'd like to see. And if it makes sense and we can do it, we usually try and get it out there.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And being a member of Uphold and using the exchange for a while now, I've seen a lot of updates from your end. You guys are definitely always like building and adding new features, which is great. And I think that's great for us as users, and definitely looking forward to the new things coming this year. My final question, and I don't know how much insight you can give to this, but a lot of everybody's pretty much waiting for real crypto regulations here in the United States. I'm curious, being on the building end of things, and you guys are as a business versus us as the consumers and investors. What are you guys seeing on your end, or maybe anything you guys are doing to try to help push regulations, if any? Just curious what's happening, on the building side of things.
So we have always, since we were founded, worked heavily and believed that regulation and clear legislation is necessary. I think a lot of people's opinions have evolved closer to that. Originally, it was a lot of like, there should be no legislation. It should be unregulated, and that was never how we kind of looked at things. And I think, thankfully, at least in the U.S. and other geographies as well, people are starting to put in place parameters and roadworks, and they're really starting to understand, okay, that this can and should be taken seriously. Now, how do we integrate it with our old money system, and how do we make it work, and how do we solve for problems that, if you take legislation that were written 200 years ago, doesn't really apply to this ecosystem or use case now. So we're working behind the scenes as much as we can with different products and communities and groups. I'm on a few different groups and thought leadership kind of meetups that we are really trying to help build some of that legislation and put it forward. And what do we put forward and what does that look like? And how do we bridge from what someone in DC understands to what the actual use case is, and how do we help bring everything forward? We're always working to solve some of the problems. The New York Bit license is something we're really trying to bring in. I know a lot of our users continually ask daily about that. We're working closely with the departments to bring that forward as well. So we're working behind the scenes. Our team and our legal team is working constantly across a multitude of geographies and time zones and everything they can to really work with those, but also help enact things that if we can bring any influence that really makes sense and will help improve for the consumers, to ensure that good actors are there and to avoid some of the pitfalls that some of the ecosystem economy have seen through opportunities that didn't go through proper regulation and things like that.
Sure. It's great to hear that you guys are working towards that as well and contributing. And I think we're all anxiously awaiting for that. And
Yeah.
I think soon enough, right? I think some things are in motion. But Michelle, this is great. I'm excited about the debit card because I certainly want to sign up for that and use it myself. And everyone, like I said, I'll put a link in the description to go check that out and put your name on the waiting list. But thank you so much, Michelle. This is really great.
It was great. Thanks for having me.